Joining us now to discuss this is Montclair State University accounting professor Dan Geltrude. Dan, it's great to have you on. This seems like this sort of never-ending cycle. How do we get out of this mess? Because obviously we're hearing that they're probably going to maybe raise it again, 0.75 basis points again soon. And yet we see it with the mortgages. We see it with all the different loans. It's almost like you're a hamster in a wheel.
That's exactly right. That's a good analogy there, Rita. So the question is here, do we really understand, or I should say, does Jerome Powell really understand what's causing the problem if you're going to fix the problem? So this is real basic, and I know the viewers out there understand. I don't know why he doesn't. Supply and demand. Pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, the demand has stayed relatively consistent. So what's changed? Supply. The supply chains are broken. So if we're going to match up supply and demand, which of course will then reduce inflation, we are currently attacking demand. We're trying to get people to buy less stuff. How about we focus in on getting supply chains fixed so that goods and services can flow freely to meet the demand? So that's the point in time where we're really going to be able to conquer inflation. The path we're taking, as well as the rest of the world, by the way, is focusing in on let's kill demand with interest rates, and then we'll get inflation under control. That may be true, but that's going to cause a lot of pain, as Jerome Powell has already indicated.
You know, Dan, also, the other issue is that we've got also the administration that's just throwing money out there. I mean, we've got the, quote, so-called Inflation Reduction Act, and then at the same time they're talking about, alleviating student loans, cutting out the student loan debts. Doesn't that complicate it? I mean, it seems like they're on two different paths between Jerome Powell and then you see Biden sort of throwing out the kitchen sink because it's pre-midterms especially.
You're exactly right. So you have politics creeping into what really is a mathematical formula. So now what the administration is doing is they are flooding the system with more cash. People have more money. What do? They start to spend or want to spend that. If supply is not there to meet that demand, well, then prices are going to go up. So then you have the Fed on the other side saying, no, we don't want inflation. We'll keep raising interest rates to force people not to spend. So you basically have water coming in the rowboat on one side, and the other side is trying to bail it out. You go nowhere. That's the point.
Absolutely. And that's a great analogy, Dan, too. I want to get your take on this. This is President Biden. He was on 60 Minutes recently. And this is what he had to say when it came to inflation.
Inflation rate month to month was just an inch, hardly at all.
You're not arguing that 8.3 is good news.
No, I'm not saying it is good news, but it was 8.2 or 8.2 before. I mean, it's not. Maybe I can make it sound like all of a sudden, my God, it went to 8.2%. It's
the highest inflation rate, Mr. President, in 40 years.
I got that, but guess what we are? We're in a position where for the last several months it hasn't spiked. It has just barely, it's been basically even.
He argues that because it has not spiked in the last few months, and it's, in his words, basically even, things are not that bad. He seemed very tone deaf to me. What was your reaction?
Well, I agree with you there. That's absolutely being tone deaf and expecting people to say, well, it's not that bad. No, it is that bad. We're feeling the pain. We're not getting relief. He is right in terms of saying the inflation rate stayed relatively consistent. But is that what you want to call good news? That means, well, everything we're doing, it's really just holding things down. So we're going to continue to have high prices as it is. Get used to it. That's completely unacceptable. The formula has to be we need to do things to lower inflation. How did we get here in the first place? Okay, we have to reverse that, not just stand pat and say, accept it for what it is.
Right, exactly. Just keep it going, right? Keep the bad news coming, right, as opposed to getting it better. Really, it is incredible. Dan Geltrude, great to have you here. Always wonderful to have you here on the show.
Thank you, Rita.
Thanks so much. And everybody coming up.